In these pro-revenge stories, shady business people learned you better keep your word or karma is coming for you. Story 1's titled, We Reversed Gazumped a Greedy Landlord, and it was glorious. Gazumping occurs when an agent or seller accepts an offer you make to buy a property at an agreed upon price, but the property is sold to someone else. This usually happens when the vendor sells the property for a higher amount. This happened 15 years ago, and it is one of the proudest moments of my life. My best friend and her husband have 5 kids together. They lived in an expensive city and rented an old 4-bedroom house for $400 a week. The house was very run down with a disgusting kitchen and stinky drains, but it was all they could afford at the time. Still, they made it work. The owner was a nice old lady who was extremely wealthy and very fond of my friend. She froze the rent for 5 years and promised to let them buy the house once they saved enough to get a loan from the bank. She had helped other people in a similar way. They knew they could trust her, and so they saved every cent they could. It took them 5 years, but they finally told her they were ready. 2 days later, the nice old lady passed away before anything was put in writing. Enter the new owners, the lady's 4 children, each extremely wealthy in their own right. They inherited a huge portfolio of properties. When they first spoke to my friends, they assured them the sale would still go through, but they would have to wait until probate had settled. Confident, my friends started making some changes to the place. They started by stripping wallpaper, painting, and making plans. Finally, probate was settled and the owners agreed to go ahead with the sale for the previously agreed price. My friends applied for the loan, but to their shock, it was refused. The owners had raised the asking price by $80,000 without telling my friends. To make things even worse, the house will be put on the open market, and in 7 days there would be an open house. And the way the market was, it would probably sell immediately. My friends were devastated. They might be able to get enough, but it would take longer than a week to get it. To make matters worse, property prices soared, and recently rents had gone up a lot while theirs had been frozen. Not only were my friends going to struggle to get the money, if the place was sold to someone else and they were asked for higher rent or were evicted, it would be nearly impossible to find an affordable place with more than 2 bedrooms. I was scared for my friends, but I was also incandescently angry. Those greedy sods were some of the wealthiest people in the city, and they were screwing over a struggling family for less than $20,000 each. They didn't need the money. It was pure greed, and it was obvious that they'd always planned to do this. So while my friends scrambled to come up with the money, I started plotting. I looked up advice on what helps to make a sale. We needed to make the place look as undesirable as possible without making my friends look like bad tenants. Uncluttered, we moved all the furniture in from the walls, added some extra furniture and borrowed ornaments, and hung a load of motorcycle memorabilia on the walls. The place felt smaller. Smell. My friend boiled a head of cabbage on the stove, and we sprayed ammonia around the front and back doors, because it smelled like all the neighborhood cats had been marking their territory. We poured 2 dozen rotten eggs down the drain to make it smell like sewer gas. Neighborhood. We obtained an old moldy couch and dumped it in the front yard of the neighbor across the road, with permission of course. We started calling our friends for help. Anybody with a loud and crappy car was asked to do a few laps out front around the block during opening day. The street was unusually busy that day. Everyone we knew found a reason to drive by. It was practically rush hour. We called out a few mates from the rugby club. Full contact football without any of that soft padding. A big portion of our club are very large men. The next door neighbor set up a barbecue in their front yard, and we offered free food and cheap beer. They came on motorcycles wearing their roughest gear. There was quite a crowd. A lot of people showed up for the opening day. Quite a few were in and out within minutes. One lady sat in her car and watched the party next door before driving away. The one bloke who stayed any length of time was brave enough to start up a conversation with someone leaving the party. He asked if they were there often and was told every couple of weeks or so. And they have an after party in the morning, and the party the night before was 3 doors up. Partygoer also helpfully mentioned about those troublesome drains that were always getting blocked up by tree roots and stinking up the place. The potential buyer left without making an offer, so my friends were the only ones to make an offer. They still had to pay more than they planned, but not as much as the greedy twits wanted. My friends signed the papers and paid the deposit that day. So when a brave buyer put in an offer of $30,000 more than my friends, there was nothing the owners could do about it. Strict anti-gazumping laws. I would have loved to see the owner's face when they found out. For all the people who were saying they had cheap rent, they didn't. $400 was the rent in 2004, and that was pretty high back then. By the time the lady died, the average rent for a house that size had gone up by about $40. Nowadays, 4-bedroom houses in that area go for approximately $800 per week. Hurting their bottom line and hitting them in the pocketbook is the only way to get back at people like that. But the entire time I was reading that story, I'm visualizing the Gallaghers from Shameless being the ones to do this. It was also pretty cool to know that an entire neighborhood has each other's back. If you're enjoying the stories today, don't forget to like, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button. On to Story 2, we've got some more revenge. Story 2 is titled, Oh, I Played the Long Game. I am by no means an expert or pro at revenge, but I'm a patient person. I disclosed this to a friend and they directed me here. Throwaway for obvious reasons. It's a long read, but the setup and backstory are important. 7 years ago, I was lucky enough to buy my own place. I had saved for 10 years. I worked my butt off, and I was so happy to be able to have a place to call my own. Now, being a single person on the mortgage meant I had to make compromises. One such compromise was buying a property on a shared block, a lot cheaper. Where I'm from, this usually means it's on a strata title. For some, that's a bonus as it means there's a communal fund for repairs. Typically, insurance is cheaper as it's collective, and other things like maintenance being taken care of. Strata titles also come with a lot of bylaws and restrictions on what you can and can't do. I'm a pretty private, introverted person, so having to deal with people and have limits on how I can live was a no-no. I took my time. I found the perfect property. Shared block but freehold title. Only thing was I needed to pay public liability insurance for the shared walkaway on the property. Split equally between owners. The real estate agent is local to my area. There's about 3 degrees of separation between us. He has friends who are friends with my friends type of thing. Didn't know him, but knew of him. So that sort of felt good too. About 5 months after I move in, I get a knock on the door from the owner, landlord of the property next to me, to discuss insurance. Not a problem. I ask for a copy of the policy so I have a record. It gets sent through and lo and behold, it's for strata insurance. I was incredibly confused, and after much back and forth, the property isn't a freehold title, but it's a strata title. I called my lawyer who conveyed the title. He was dumbfounded over it all, but did the right thing and made things as right as they could. I arranged for a meeting with the real estate agent. I bought emails and printouts of the ads they had, all saying it was freehold. Emails between the real estate agent and my lawyer discussing its freehold status. Despite it being in black and white, he refused to accept any fault or offer of anything to make things right. I don't begrudge that. He's looking out for himself. I get that, but I wouldn't forget it. I did enter into mediation with the real estate agent, and all I asked for was when the time came for me to sell, they'd do it or cover the cost. I thought this was reasonable, but they flat out refused and offered me $1,000 to go away, which I refused. I had the option to pursue them legally and was advised by the mediator to do so, but Ultimately, I decided against it for a few reasons, the main one being my health at the time. So I planned and plotted, and I schemed and connived as to how to get back at this cretin. I settled on this. I found his personal Facebook page, which wasn't sent to private, found some photos of a boys on tour trip he went on a few weeks prior. So about 5 to 6 months after I bought the property. I also found his address through a business registration search. On the anniversary of the sale for 6 years straight, I sent them flowers with a note. Dear real estate agent, remembering you on this, our special day. She has your eyes. Love, Ellie. They varied ever so slightly over the years, but always had, on this our special day, and some weird inference to a love child and a desire to reconnect. I also from time to time arranged for postcards and letters to be sent from another country, the one he was on tour in. Always signed, Love, Ellie. I learned about 3 weeks ago that this guy had recently divorced, lost his home, and is no longer working as a real estate agent. His wife found out that he cheated on her. The story I was told through said friends of friends went along the lines of he would get weird gifts and flowers every year. Same day every year. His wife finally put 2 and 2 together and realized what the date was. Now, I didn't mean for this, but it turns out a year before I bought my house, he had gone on holiday and came back with a bug, gave it to his wife, and somehow convinced her it wasn't him. As such, our special day turned out to be right around the time he was with that other woman, only 1 year later. Apparently, he lost his house, half his retirement savings, and also his business. I do feel a little guilty about all of it sometimes, but then I'm reminded he's a scumbag and that karma, like me, is a patient, spiteful, vengeful witch. So what did we learn today? You cannot outrun the karmic boomerang. It's coming. If you do dirt, you cannot wash it off. So greedy people lost a lot of money, and a shady real estate agent lost his house and his wife. I hope you enjoyed these stories because I've been holding on to these two for a long time. If you did, please, as usual, click the like button, share, and subscribe. By now, YouTube is showing you some options for some other videos that we have. They will all be worth your time. I'm always so thankful when you stop by to listen to me read stories. We will see you next time. Have a great day, night, morning, whatever time of day it is. I appreciate you bunches. See you next time.